If you're watching this video, you probably have two main questions. What is this game and how does the Switch port perform a year after its more powerful console and PC release? Well, I'm going to give you these answers, and it's starting right now as I review TT Isle of Man on the Nintendo Switch. Even people with no interest in bike racing will most likely have heard of the Isle of Man TT races.
For the brave, for the fearless, for the bold, seeking out their destiny.
Where, with the greatest of respect, the utterly insane make the pilgrimage to the small island to race immensely powerful motorbikes around narrow and winding village roads at impossibly ridiculous speeds, in hopes of being crowned the TT champion. The danger of this event cannot be understated, with over 250 deaths occurring during the race since its inception in 1907. This year's real life event is actually due to get underway this weekend, so if anybody wants to check it out for themselves, then have a look around YouTube for some footage. The original version of this game came out on other platforms in March 2018 to generally positive reviews, with many praising the inclusion of the full 37.73 mile course, although the game does include 9 other smaller fantasy tracks to hone your skills on and work through variations of in the career mode leading up to the big race itself. All of this content has made it across to the Switch port, and developers Kyloton Games have done a sterling job squeezing everything onto our little handheld. Whilst it's a shame there's no gyro or tilt controls for steering, the Switch version does include a pretty nifty single Joy-Con mode for split screenplay, which was a nice touch and showing KT Games wanted to go the extra distance. Generally, the game controls superbly. If you've ever played a bike racing game beyond something arcadey like Super Hang-On, then you know how hard it is to control the bikes in games, certainly compared to their four-wheel racing vehicle counterparts. But with a range of both control layout options and assist modes, you should be able to make it round without falling off too much. You can hand most things off to the assists to handle, such as avoiding wheelies and shifting your weight around on the bike, but if you want to, these options can be put into your hands. I have already been asked a lot on social media about the lack of analog triggers, and whilst it's true that the game would have been better for them, I found using ZR and ZL to accelerate and brake perfectly fine. But if you really want some fine grain analog controls, then you can use the right stick for this, which again is a nice thoughtful touch. The sense of speed in TT is pretty much like nothing else I've ever experienced in a racing game. Thanks to those narrow country village roads which are adorned with trees, cottages and telegraph poles, you feel very claustrophobic at times, and this all helps with the sense of speed. But the real beauty is when you pick up speed, the sound of the wind whistling past really increases your heart rate and your palms begin to sweat. This feeling of exhilaration cannot be understated, and nailing even the easiest of corners at this speed feels incredibly rewarding. If you prefer, you can tackle these events with another crazy person hanging onto the side of your bike in a sidecar. They shift their weight around to help negotiate the twisting tracks. Whilst not a mode I liked personally, it's nice to have it included as an option for sure. Now, each of the races or the big TT event itself can be played in a standard racing format or something more akin to a rally, where riders take off on their own at set intervals and compete for the fastest time around the track. This is by far the best way to play. The AI riders, whilst I wouldn't call them dumb by any means, served as more of a distraction, as I was normally more concerned just staring wide-eyed down the track, focused on the next slightly raised curve that could have sent my rider somersaulting through the air to my mangled death. Thankfully, coming off your bike in any mode is just a temporary blip and you are reset on the track, ready to go again. I must say though, the crashes and almost ragdoll physics of your rider are pretty awesome, and definitely make you wince in some of the more spectacular crashes. The career mode I mentioned earlier is also a nice inclusion. After you create your rider and your bike choice, you work your way through the months, picking which races to enter on your way to the TT race itself, and you pick up fans, but more importantly money, on the way to spend on better bikes. It's not the most in-depth career mode I've ever played in a game, but I definitely appreciated the way it was used to tie all the content together. Now, performance wise, I'd say is generally good. As in other bike games on the Switch, handheld suffers with a lower resolution and the odd frame stutter, which in a game all about avoiding mistakes in the narrowest of margins can be a bit of a bummer. In docked mode, I thought the game looked very nice indeed, but whichever mode you do choose, that sense of death-defying speed remains constant. Which was the most important thing for me. Now audio is given the room to shine here as well, from the different engine noises of each bike with their own distinctive cracks and pops, to this simple inclusion of that wind noise that makes it feel like you're sitting astride a speeding bullet. Incidental music in the menus is pretty standard fare for this sort of game, and it's not really an issue. Now overall, the biggest sticking point for TT Isle of Man is the price point of £45 and $50. It's already a niche title and also available on other platforms now for around half the asking price and at a much higher fidelity. It's a shame that at this price it's probably out the reach of the sort of no-brainer buy, but it has to be noted there is a physical version available for the Switch though, which is generally good news, and this is no slight on the quality of the game, I can see it being discounted over time from gamers who either couldn't get on with it or just stores trying to shift stock. Now with that said, and it's not often I will say this, if you like bike racing games, and even if you don't particularly care for the TT race, this is probably worth the full price of entry. There's a decent amount of content here, and just perfecting the 264 turns of the Snaefell Mountain course itself and posting the best times to the online leaderboards is something I'll personally return to again and again. Now I didn't expect to like TT Isle of Man as much as I did. I usually prefer my racing games to have 4 wheels and circuit tracks than something like bike racing on the long winding TT racetracks, but I'm just captivated by this game. The sense of speed and the challenge of man versus track, the general look and performance, and it's just a really solid port from KT Games. Now I'm going to absolutely recommend this game to racing fans, and as it stands right now, the sense of simulated racing is unparalleled on the Switch. I'm delighted to be able to give TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge an 8 out of 10 on the Nintendo Switch. Okay, thanks for watching the review guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy the video, remember to please subscribe. It'd be great after breaking the 1000 subscriber barrier to push on to the next milestone with your help. But until the next video, remember to stay switched on, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.